Joe Biden went on George Stephanopoulos, the Partisan Democrat, on ABC for an interview, and I want to break it down and analyze it for you guys.
Mr. President, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the debate. You and your team have said you had a bad night. But
Why is he so orange? Is he really imitating Donald Trump to that degree? Does he want to be Donald Trump?
But your friend Nancy Pelosi actually framed the question that I think is on the minds of millions of Americans. Was this a bad episode or the sign of a more serious condition?
It was a bad episode. No indication of any serious condition. I was exhausted. I didn't listen to my instincts in terms of preparing, and I had a bad night.
You know, you say you were exhausted, and I know you said
Does anybody really believe that?
that before as well, but you came, and you did have a tough month, but you came home from Europe about 11 or 12 days before the debate, spent 6 days in Camp David. Why wasn't that enough rest time, enough recovery time?
Because I was sick. I was feeling terrible. Matter of fact, the docs with me, I asked if they did a COVID test because they're trying to figure out what's wrong. They did a test to see whether or not I had some infection, a virus. I didn't. They just had a really bad cold.
And did you?
And is that somebody that we want in charge of the free world, making the decisions for everybody who gets sick and needs 6 days to recover on a regular basis?
Did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
I don't think I did, no.
He can't remember for sure whether or not he watched the debate. That's disqualifying right there.
Well, what I want to get at is, what were you experiencing as you were going through the debate? Did you know how badly it was going?
Yeah, look. The whole way I prepared, nobody's fault mine. Nobody's fault but mine. I prepared what I usually would do, sitting down, as I did come back with foreign leaders or the National Security Council, for explicit detail. And I realized about partway through that, I get quoted, the New York Times had me down at 10 points before the debate, 9.
That's a false statement right there. Biden's not even currently down 10 points, although he should be down 50 points.
Now, or whatever the hell it is. The fact of the matter is that what I looked at is that he also lied 28 times. The way the debate ran, not my fault, nobody else's fault. No.
Yeah, it's your fault. And do you want Joe Biden, or really any Democrat, going up against President Xi of China or Vladimir Putin if he can't fact check them in real time, if he's not sharp enough?
What else?
But it seemed like you were having trouble from the first question in, even before he spoke.
Well, I just had a bad night.
Mm-hmm.
You've had some bad
Right.
interviews once in a while. I can't remember any, but I'm sure you do.
I've had plenty. I guess the problem is here for a lot of Americans watching is, you've said, going back to 2020, watch me, to people who are concerned about your age. And, 50 million Americans watched that debate. It seemed to confirm fears they already had.
Well, look, after that debate, I did 10 major events in a row, including till 2 o'clock in the morning after that debate. I did events in North Carolina. I did events in Georgia. Did events like this today. Large crowds, overwhelming response, no slipping. And so I just had a bad night. I don't know why.
And how quickly
Because you have dementia.
did it come to you that you were having that bad night?
Well, it came to me as having a bad night when I realized that even when I was answering a question, even when they turned his mic off, he was still shouting. And I let it.
I'm sorry, I did not see that at the debate. I absolutely did not see that one time, other than when they turned his mic back on for the golfing handicap exchange.
Distract me. I'm not blaming it on that. But I realized that I just wasn't in control.
Part of the other concern is that this seems to have fit into a pattern of decline.
Just not to repeat myself, but do you want somebody who wasn't in control over the debate in charge of the free world? I have to ask that question again, as somebody who's rooting for Joe Biden to continue to ensure a total annihilation of the Democratic Party.
That has been reported on recently. New York Times had a headline on July 2nd, Biden's lapses are said to be increasingly common and worrisome. Here's what they wrote. People who have spent time with President Biden over the last few months or so said the lapses appear to have grown more frequent, more pronounced, and after Thursday's debate, more worrisome. By many accounts, as evidenced by video footage, observation, and interviews, Mr. Biden is not the same today as he was even when he took office 3.5 years ago. Similar reporting in the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. Are you the same man today that you were when you...
I have to interject here and tell you that this is contrary to what the New York Times was stating before the debate, where they were running cover for Joe Biden. Why the sudden change? Because it's so apparent to absolutely everybody who has witnessed even the first 10 minutes of the debate that Joe Biden is not up to the task. They can no longer lie so profusely to the public.
took office 3.5 years ago?
In terms of successes, yes. I also was the guy who put together a peace plan for the Middle East that may be coming to fruition.
Peace plan for the Middle East? You mean what Trump created with the accords between Israel and the other countries? Yeah, I think that was far superior in terms of the peace that we had in the Middle East before you took office.
Also the guy that expanded NATO. It's also the guy that grew the economy. All the individual things that were done were ideas I had or I fulfilled. I moved on. And so, for example, well, that was true then. What's Biden done lately? Today, just announced 200,000 new jobs. We're moving in a direction that no one's...
Which, of course, those numbers were revised downwards very recently. That's just complete malarkey, as he would say.
Never taken on, I know you know this from the days in the government. I took on Big Pharma. I beat them. No one thought I could beat them. I took on...
How did he beat Big Pharma? I'm sorry to keep interjecting, but I believe that Pfizer had its most profitable year ever under Joe Biden because of the mandates that he tried to impose on the American public in terms of taking this vaccine that the U.S. taxpayer paid for en masse.
On all the things we said we got done, we were told we couldn't get done. And part of it is what I said when I ran was I wanted to do three things. Restore some decency to the office.
Which you didn't.
Restore some support for the middle class instead of trickle-down economics built from the middle out and the bottom up, the way the wealthy still do fine, everyone does better, and unite the country.
But what has all that work
He united the country against him.
over the last 3.5 years cost you physically, mentally, emotionally?
Well, I just think it cost me a really bad night.
Ooh,
Bad
that's all
run.
it cost him.
But, George, I'm optimistic about this country. I don't think we're a country of losers, that he points out. I don't think America's in tough shape. I think America's on the cusp of breaking through in so many incredible opportunities. This next term, I'm going to make sure
Who believes that?
Straighten out the tax system. I'm going to make sure we're in a situation where we have health care for all people, where we're in a position where we have child care and elder care, free up, and all these things. One thing I'm proudest of.
More socialist policies.
And you remember when my economic plan was put forward, a lot of the mainstream economists said it's not going to work. Well, guess what? We now have 16 Nobel laureates, 16 of them in economics, saying that Biden's next term would be, based on what he wants to do, enormous success.
Probably taken from the same 51 intelligence agents who stated that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation.
Yes, Trump's plan would cause a recession, would significantly increase inflation. I've made great progress, and that's why.
Sorry, inflation has ramped up rapidly under your administration.
I plan on doing, and we can do this.
I understand that, and I'm not disputing that. What I'm asking you is about your personal situation. Do you dispute that there have been more lapses, especially in the last several months?
Can I run the 110 flat? No, but I'm still in good shape.
Are you more frail?
No.
I know you
Come
spoke.
keep my schedule.
I know you spoke with your doctor after the debate. What did he say?
He said, he just looked at me and said, "You're exhausted." I said, "Look, I have medical doctors traveling everywhere, every president does, as you know. Medical doctors, some of the best in the world, travel me everywhere I go. I have an ongoing assessment of what I'm doing. They don't hesitate to tell me if they think there's something wrong.
I know you said you have an ongoing assessment. Have you had a full neurological and cognitive evaluation?
I get a full neurological test every day with me. And I've had a full physical. I had, I've been able to read for my physicals. Yes.
I know your doctor said he consulted with a neurologist. I guess I'm asking a slightly different question. Have you had the specific cognitive tests, and have you had a neurologist, a specialist, do an examination?
No, no one said I had to. No one said, they said I'm good.
Would you be willing to undergo an independent medical evaluation that included neurological and cognitive tests and release the results to the American people?
Look, I have a cognitive test every single day. Every day I have that test. Everything I do. Not only am I campaigning, but I'm running the world. And that's not how it sounds like hyperbole. But we are the essential nation in the world. I don't know if that was right. And every single day, for example, today, before I come out here, I'm on the phone with the Prime Minister. I shouldn't get into detail, but with Netanyahu. I'm on the phone with the new Prime Minister of England. I'm working on what we're doing with regard to, in Europe, with regard to expansion of NATO and whether it's going to stick. I'm taking on Putin. Every day, there's no day I go through, there are not those decisions I have to make every single day.
And you have been doing that, and the American people have been watching, yet their concerns about your age and your health are growing. So that's why I'm asking, to reassure them, would you be willing to have the independent medical evaluation?
Watch me there's a lot of time left in this campaign.
In other words, no.
It's over 125 days.
So the right answer right now is no, you don't want to do that right now.
I've already done
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, in front of everybody, and you failed miserably because it was apparent to the entire public what I've been stating since 2020, that you have dementia.
Not about your successes at the beginning of this interview, and I don't want to dispute that. I don't want to debate that. But as you know, elections are about the future, not the past. They're about tomorrow, not yesterday. And the question on so many people's minds right now is, can you serve effectively for the next 4 years?
George, I'm the guy that put NATO together, the future. No one thought I could expand it. I'm the guy that shut Putin down. No one thought it could happen.
How did you shut Putin down? Putin invaded Ukraine on your watch. Under Trump's watch, did he do it? What did Iran do? You emboldened them.
I'm the guy that put together the South Pacific Initiative with AUKUS. I'm the guy that got 50 nations, not only in Europe, outside of Europe as well, to help Ukraine. I'm the guy that got Japanese to expand their budget. For example, when I decided we used to have 40% of the computer chip, and we invented the chip, that little chip, the computer chip. It's in everything from cell phone to weapons. And so we used to have 40%, we're down to virtually nothing. So I get in a plane against the advice of everybody, and I fly to South Korea. I convinced them to invest in the United States, billions of dollars. Now we have tens of billions of dollars being invested in the United States, making us back in a position where we're going to own that industry again. We have, I guess, anyway, I don't want to take too much credit. I have a great staff.
But I guess my point is, all that takes a toll. Do you have the mental and physical capacity to do it for another 4 years?
I believe so. I wouldn't be running if I didn't think I did. Look, I'm running again because I think I understand best what has to be done to take this nation to a completely new level. We're on our way.
You mean down a level, with the racial animosity that you've built up, with the policies that have increased inflation, with the world wars that are breaking out. You're taking us down, Joe Biden, down to Davy Jones' locker with you.
We're on our way. And look, the decision recently made by the Supreme Court on immunity, the next president of the United States, it's not just about whether he or she knows what they're doing. It's not about a conglomerate of people making decisions. It's about the character of the president. The character of the president is going to determine whether or not this Constitution is employed the right way.
Let me ask you a tougher.
Sorry, Mr. Biden, you bragged about defying the Supreme Court and their ruling against your student loan amnesty and forgiveness.
The Supreme Court of the United States blocked me, but they didn't stop me. The Supreme Court blocked me from relieving student debt, but they didn't stop me.
You bragged about violating the separation of powers that our Constitution built into the DNA of our nation. You have no character.
More personal question. Are you sure you're being honest with yourself when you say you have the mental and physical capacity to serve another 4 years?
Yes, I am, because, George, the last thing I want to do is not be able to meet that. I think, as some of the senior economists and senior foreign policy specialists say, if I stop now, I'd go down in history as a pretty successful president.
No.
No one thought I could get done what we got done.
But are you
What,
being
destroying the
honest
nation?
with yourself
You're right
as
about
well
that.
about your ability to defeat Donald Trump right now?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
You say that, and let me challenge you.
Sure.
Because you were close, but behind going into the debate. You're further behind now by any measure. It's been a two-man race for several months. Inflation has come down. In those last few months, he's become a convicted felon, yet you're still falling further behind.
You guys keep saying that. George, you know polling better than anybody. Do you think polling data is accurate as it used to be?
I don't think so, but I think when you look at all of the polling data right now, it shows that he's certainly ahead in the popular vote, probably even more ahead in the battleground states. And one of the other key factors there is it shows that in many of the battleground states, the Democrats who are running for Senate and the House are doing better than you are.
Well, that's not unusual in some states. I carried an awful lot of Democrats last time I ran in 2020. Look, I remember them telling me the same thing in 2020.
What carried y'all was mail-in voting and the election rules that you changed.
I can't win. The polls show I can't win. Remember 2020, the red wave was coming. Before the vote, I said, that's not going to happen. We're going to win. We did better in an off year than almost any incumbent president ever has done. They said in 2023, all the tough races, we're not going to win. I went into all those areas, all those districts, and we won.
All that is true, but 2020 was a close race. And your approval rating has dropped significantly since then. I think the last poll I saw was about 36%. The number of Americans who think you're too old to serve has doubled since 2020. Wouldn't a clear-eyed political calculus tell you that it's going to be much tougher to win in 2024?
Not when you're running against a pathological liar. Not when he hadn't been challenged in a way that he's about to be challenged. Not when people...
Challenged, you mean tying him up in court and committing lawfare against him, weaponizing the DOJ against your political opponent? I believe that Trump's been challenged by this person who's claiming to be saintly in comparison to Trump.
You've had months to challenge him.
Oh, I sure had method, but I was also doing a hell of a lot of other things, like wars around the world. Like
That you
NATO
created.
together, like working anyway.
We're allowed to fester.
But look,
Do you really believe you're not behind right now?
I think all the pollsters I talk to tell me it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up. And when I'm behind, there's only one poll I'm really far behind, CBS poll and NBC, and
New York Times and NBC both have you about 6 points behind in the popular vote.
that's exactly right. New York Times had me behind before anything having to do with this race. Had me behind 10 points. 10 points had me
No,
behind.
that's not true.
Nothing's changed substantially from the debate, the New York Times poll.
Just when you look at the reality, though, Mr. President, I mean, you won the popular vote in 2020, but it was still deadly close in the electoral
By 7
college.
million votes.
Yes, but you're behind now in the popular vote.
I don't buy that.
Is
Good.
it worth the risk?
Keep believing that.
I don't think anybody's more qualified to be president or win this race than me.
You know, the heart of your case against Donald Trump is that he's only out for himself, putting his personal interest ahead of the national interest. How do you respond to critics who say that by staying in the race, you're doing the same thing?
Oh, come on. Well, I don't think those critics know what they're talking about.
They're just wrong.
It's wrong. Look, Trump is a pathological liar.
That's the
Trump
point they keep
is-
coming back to.
He is. Have you ever seen anything Trump did that benefited somebody else, not him?
Yeah,
You can't
tons of
answer,
his
I know.
policies.
I've questioned him and his allies as persistently as any journalist has.
No, I know you have. I'm not being
Yeah.
critical.
Journalist in
I'm
quotes.
not being critical. But look, I mean, the man is a congenital liar.
Do you notice the talking point that he's hitting over and over and over again? Liar, liar, liar. What about the fact that you stated during the debate that not a single U.S. serviceman has lost his life under you when 13 members of the Marines in Afghanistan during your botched withdrawal, where you handed over billions of dollars in weapons to the Taliban, were killed because of your incompetence in your pullout? And then you checked your watch when you met with the parents.
As I said, they pointed out in that debate he lied 27, 28 times the times, or whatever number, over 20 times. Talk about how good his economy was, how he brought down inflation, how this is a
He
guy
did.
who, unlike only other president other than him, is Hoover, lost more jobs than he created. This is a guy who told us to put
Gee, I wonder why that is. Could it be that there was a pandemic that was unleashed on the world, that every Democrat said that if you called it a lab leak, that you were a conspiracy theorist?
bleach in our arms to deal with COVID, when over a million people died. This is a guy who talks about wanting to get rid of the healthcare provision we put in place. This is a guy who wants to give the power back to big pharma to be able to charge exorbitant prices for drugs. This is a guy who wants to undo every single.
Again, the hundreds of billions of dollars that you shuffled into the pockets of big pharma, Joe Biden, during the pandemic for the so-called vaccine.
Thing I've done. Every single thing.
I understand that. I understand that's why you want to stay in the race. But if you convinced yourself that only you can defeat him,
I convinced myself of two things. I'm the most qualified person to beat him, and I know how to get things done.
if you can be convinced that you cannot defeat Donald Trump, will you stand down?
It depends if the Lord Almighty comes out and tells me that, I might do that.
Well, I mean, on a more practical level, Washington Post just reported
Is the Lord Almighty Barack Obama?
in the last hour that Senator Mark Warner is assembling a group of senators together to try and convince you to stand down because they don't think you can win.
Well, Mark is a good man. We've never had that. He also tried to get the nomination too. Mark's not. Mark and I have a different perspective. I respect him.
And if Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and Nancy Pelosi come down and say, we're worried that if you stay in the race, we're going to lose the House and the Senate, how will you respond?
I go into detail with them. I've spoken to all of them in detail, including Jim Clyburn. Every one of them. They all said I should stay in the race. Stay in the race. No one said, none of the people said I should leave.
But if they do,
Well, it's like, they're not going to do that.
you sure?
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, if the Lord Almighty came down and said, Joe, get out of the race, I get out of the race, the Lord Almighty's not coming down. I mean, these hypotheticals, George. If, I mean,
Yeah, far-fetched,
all-
right?
It's not that hypothetical anymore. I grant that they have not requested the meeting, but it's been
well,
reported.
I've met with them. I've met with a lot of these people. I've talked with them regularly. I had an hour conversation with Hakeem. I had more time than that with Jim Clyburn. I spent time with many hours off and on the last little bit with Chuck Schumer. It's not like I had all the governors.
I agree that the Lord Almighty is not going to come down, but if you are told reliably from your allies, from your friends and supporters in the Democratic Party, in the House and the Senate, that they're concerned you're going to lose the House and the Senate if you stay in, what will you do?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Good, good. Do you notice that every single question is pointing for Joe to get out? That is definitely the case here.
Not going to happen.
What's your plan to turn the campaign around?
Saw it today. How many people do you get draw crowds like I drew?
Not Donald Trump, that's for sure. He's never drawn a big crowd. Definitely not bigger than what you just drew.
You find me more enthusiastic than today? Huh?
I mean, I don't think you want to play the crowd game. Donald Trump can draw big crowds. There's no question about that.
I can draw a big crowd, but what's he say? Who's he have? I'm the guy supposedly in trouble. We raised $38 million within 4 days after this. We have over 1 million individual contributors. That's less than $200. You know, I mean, I've not seen what you're proposing.
You haven't seen the fall off in the polls. You haven't seen the reports of discontent in the Democratic Party, House Democrats, Senate Democrats.
I've seen it from the press.
You know, I've heard from dozens of your supporters over the last few days, and a variety of views. I grant you that. But the prevailing sentiment is this. They love you. And they will be forever grateful to you for defeating Donald Trump in 2020. They think you've done a great job as president, a lot of the successes you outlined. But they are worried about you and the country, and they don't think you can win. They want you to go with grace, and they will cheer you if you do. What do you say to them?
I say the vast majority are not where those folks are. I don't doubt there's some folks there. Have you ever seen a group at a time when elected officials running for office aren't a little worried? Have you ever seen that? I've not. Same thing happened in 2020. Oh, Biden, I don't know, man. What's he going to do? He may bring me down. He may.
Mr. President, I've never seen a president 36% approval get reelected.
Well, I don't believe that's my approval. That's not what our polls show.
And if you stay in and Trump is elected and everything you're warning about comes to pass, how will you feel in January?
I feel as long as I gave it my all and I did the goodest job as I know I can do.
The goodest job.
That's what this is about.
The goodest job.
George, think of it this way. You've heard me say this before. I think the United States and the world is at an inflection point. But the things that happen in the next several years are going to determine what the next 6-7 decades look like. And who's going to be able to hold NATO together like me? Who's going to be able to be in a position where I'm able to keep the Pacific Basin in a position where we're at least checkmating China now? Who's going to do that? Who has that reach? Who knows all this? We're going to have
nobody but you, Joe. Nobody but you, you arrogant bastard.
You're going to have now the NATO conference here in the United States next week. Come listen. See what they say.
Mr. President, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Wow, I mean, that was really painful. I don't know how many other ways George Stephanopoulos could have told him that he personally wants Joe to step down. Step down, you'll be a hero. Joe's not going to do that. Why? The arrogance of this man, the inability to assess reality. Of course, that's most Democrats for you, but there's no way that Joe Biden's going to be the nominee. And I say that as somebody who wishes that he would be, because I think that Trump will definitely beat him and we need a Republican sweep. And I say that again as an ex-Democrat voter for basically all my life, but the party has gone completely haywire. And I actually have an $850 bet at strong odds that I got long ago that stated that Joe Biden would not be the nominee. And I'm hoping that I lose that bet. I am hoping that I lose that bet. But you can see the arrogance of Joe Biden, that only God Almighty could come down and tell him not to run. And George Stephanopoulos, a Democrat laundromat for all the lies, is telling Joe to get out of the race. That's what you have. And you have a man who is telling you that all my fault, which I find rather humorous considering the fact that he's the only person that anybody is asking to resign. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Peace.